For this evening, we're delighted to have Brendan Banfield, who's from the Desert Rose project at the University of Wollongong. Their brief essentially was to create the world's most sustainable home, and that home is being entered into a global competition called the Solar Decathlon, where it will compete against other universities trying to achieve that objective. The University of Wollongong decided that wouldn't be enough, and the Desert Rose team decided to also, as well as creating the world's most sustainable home, create a dementia-friendly home, so tackling two of society's biggest challenges in terms of sustainability and then an ageing population as well. So I hope I haven't stolen any of your lines, Brendan.
Absolutely fine.
And I'll hand over to you to kick off.
Thank you, Nick. Yeah, so hello everyone, I'm Brendan. So I'm a PhD student at the University of Wollongong. I'm doing a PhD in solar and energy storage, but I'm also the building services manager for the Solar Decathlon project. Yeah, so just a quick rundown of what I'll go through today. Basically, I'll give you an overview of what the Solar Decathlon is. Has anyone here heard of the Solar Decathlon before this? One person? Yeah, sure. Then I'll go into a bit of detail about University of Wollongong's first entry into the Solar Decathlon, which was the Illawarra Flamehouse back in 2013. Then I'll give you a bit of an introduction on the entry we're having this year called the Desert Rose House. Then a bit on the Solar Decathlon Middle East contest. It's the first contest that's ever been held in the Middle East. Then a bit on the journey we've had thus far building the Desert Rose House, some technology we've incorporated into the house, and then some questions. So the Solar Decathlon started in the year 2002 by the US Department of Energy. Basically back then there wasn't a whole lot of houses that had solar power and that sort of thing on them. So the person who, I guess, was its brainchild, Richard King, thought the best way to solve this problem with solar in the residential sector was to throw the problem at a bunch of uni students. So then the Solar Decathlon was born. So it was first held in Washington, DC, and basically a bunch of universities from around America designed and built solar powered houses in their universities, and then took them to the one location and then rebuilt them there. So since then, there's basically been at least one competition every year, and then it's expanded internationally. So nowadays, teams from all around the world will aim to build sustainable solar-powered houses at their university, and tear them all down, ship them to where they're competing, and then rebuild them, and basically compete in 10 different competitions. That's why it's called a decathlon, and see who has the best, most sustainable solar-powered house. So as I mentioned before, the competition is basically based on the team that best blends design excellence, sustainability, affordability, consumer appeal, and then the contest is broken down into 1,000 points, basically 10 contests at 100 points, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. So at the moment, there's been 12 competitions to date, and there's currently 4 underway. So one just recently finished in China. So the countries that have competed so far are the ones in red, and those countries in blue are some new countries that are currently joining us in the Solar Decathlon competition in the Middle East. An interesting note is that after next year, every continent in the world, other than Antarctica and Australia, will have held a Solar Decathlon competition. That's kind of one of the goals of the University of Wollongong, is that after we finish this competition, we want to bring it to Australia and give Australian teams an opportunity to kind of showcase what they're able to do with sustainable houses. So I'll go into a bit of detail of the first house we built, which is called the Illawarra Flamehouse. Now this house was an entrant in the Solar Decathlon competition in 2013, which was held in Datong, China. So basically we decided back then that we didn't just want to build a sustainable solar powered house, but we wanted to tackle an issue we see in Australia at the moment, which is basically retrofitting your typical Australian fibre home. So we all know how, energy inefficient those homes can be and how uncomfortable it can be thermally. So we decided to show how you can retrofit a home and make it not only beautiful but comfortable as well. But unfortunately the organisers were very, not keen, you could say, on us doing that. But after fighting tooth and nail, we were able to display these retrofitting techniques. And unfortunately we couldn't actually retrofit this particular house just due to the asbestos, but we took those plans and then essentially rebuilt the house from the ground up and then displayed the retrofitting techniques. But after the competition, the retrofit went so well that there's actually been competitions since where they've purely been based on retrofits. So it was a good win for us. So back then, all the way back in 2012, it took 12 weeks to construct the house. We partnered with TAFE Illawarra, which is really nice because we get both the technical side from the uni and then the trade side from TAFE, so it's great working together with those guys. And they also give us a nice space to build the house. So it took 12 days to construct and then 5 days to dismantle. And then here's the end result. So as you can see, it was a pretty nice house. They got rid of the low ceilings you typically see in those houses, open up with high windows, a nice open living area. And that's the outside. So this house currently resides at the University of Wollongong's Innovation Campus, where it's just a bit of a test bed, and also you can even stay in it if you want. Yeah. So how they went really, really, really well. So basically, they got first place in the majority of contests and second in the others.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is pretty unheard of for a team who was their first go at doing a solar decathlon. And even more interesting, we got 957.6 points out of 1,000, which up until about 2 weeks ago was a world record. So we've just been picked at the Solar Decathlon China competition that happened this year. So hopefully we can get back that record in there.
Remind me, what year was that?
That was 2013. Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the back of that success, university were either brave enough or mad enough to decide to compete in another solar decathlon. So the idea of the Desert Rose came about in, I think it was early 2015 when the conversation started. So again, we wanted to tackle, I guess, not only building a sustainable solar powered house, but also a social issue, as Nick said. A lot of the research we do at the Sustainable Buildings Research Centre is around the ageing population and how some people are living in homes that are really, really just unsuitable for not only the elderly to live in, but just people who live in general. So we wanted to create a house that was not only sustainable and architecturally inspiring, but also, you can live in it for as long as you want. How do we incorporate features into the house that are catering for those living with dementia and that sort of thing? So we chose the Desert Rose just purely because we're competing in Dubai, and the Desert Rose is something that flourishes beautifully in a pretty harsh environment, so we thought it was a nice fitting name. So here's the team. We're a really multidisciplinary team. We have students from every single faculty in the university. So of course we're tackling the health side of things, so we've got nursing students, business students, graphic designers, obviously engineers. Every, faculty you can think of, we have students involved, and then also people from TAFE as well. So, event planners, plumbers, electricians. It's a real broad team, which really, I think, is a big advantage for us. The fact that we're so diverse and multicultural and multidisciplinary, it's really been a big learning curve for everyone. Everyone has some good ideas that we've been implementing in their house. So the goal, as I said, first one, we want to create an architecturally inspiring house that caters to those living with age-related illnesses such as dementia. We want to transform the way we think about smart sustainable buildings in Australia. We really think Australian building stock can be improved, and we really want to show that the Desert Rose is a perfect example of that. And of course, we want to win. We'll see. So the competition itself, it's called the Solar Decathlon Middle East. It's the first time, as I said, it's being held in the Middle East. Traditionally, it generally goes, it's in America one year and then somewhere else the next year. So this year, we'll be in the Middle East. So when we're in Dubai, 40 students and myself will be heading over in about a month's time to rebuild the house. So we've already built it here in Australia. We've actually built it twice here in Australia. We did a practice run, which I'll go into soon. But it's currently on a ship on its way to Dubai, where we'll meet it in about a month's time. And then we have 15 days to build it from nothing on the ground to a fully functioning house. So after that, we'll have another 2 weeks where they judge and measure the house. And then based on how well the house goes, we'll be either announce the winner or not. So it's being held at the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park, which is essentially just a really big solar park on the outskirts of Dubai. Yeah, as I said, 40 students from UOW and TAFE will be heading over very shortly. So the contest itself, being a decathlon, there's 10 different competitions. So they are either judge competitions where some industry experts come in and basically judge a house on how well they think it either looks or operates, whatever it may be, and then there's measured competition, so just how much energy you use, how much water you use, all that sort of thing. So architecture is the first contest, which is a judge contest, just measures how coherent space is, how flexible it is. A big one is that they want to see, they're really big on bright technologies in Dubai, so how well you're able to integrate technologies in the house, and then also how you're able to respond to the Middle Eastern context. So we need to not only build this house that's suitable for Australia, but build it so it's suitable for Dubai as well. So there's a lot of different things around privacy that you need to consider in the Middle East. So that was a real big important one from the early design stages. Engineering, so how well we can assemble the house in the allotted time. the house's physical structure itself, all the mechanical, electrical and plumbing systems, energy strategies, and then how well you're able to integrate solar PV into your building. So not only do they want to see solar in your house, but they want to see it integrated and replacing some kind of building element. So again, that's a judged one. Measured one is energy management, so load consumption per surface area, pretty self-explanatory. They want to make sure your house is net zero energy. We're designing the house to be actually net positive energy, and then demand response. So Dubai has a really high peak demand during the middle of the day, so they have high electricity costs during the middle of the day. So they'll basically measure how much grid energy we're pulling in during the middle of the day, and then that'll be assigned a cost. So we want to try and minimise the amount of energy we pull from the grid during the competition. Energy efficiency is a judged one. So they basically measure the efficiency of all our active and passive systems, how efficient our appliances are, and how incorporating smart energy management in the house leads to more energy efficiency measures. This is a really difficult one, comfort conditions. As you can imagine in Dubai, even though it's going into the winter months in November, it's still 35 degrees during the middle of the day. So we need to be able to maintain these strict conditions of 23 to 25 degrees C during the basically 24/7 and 35 to 60% humidity, and then 300 lux on lighting spaces where you can work. So the lighting's not too much of a difficult one, but those temperature, that band is really, really difficult to stay in. House functioning is actually one of my favourite competitions. So not only do you need to have this UU solar powered house, but it needs to actually operate like a house. So you need to be able to cook, clean, you need to be able to keep your fridge below 4 degrees, you need to keep your freezer at negative 17 degrees, you need to be able to wash and dry clothes, you need to be able to draw hot water. So basically everything you think a house should be able to do, they measure and make sure it can do. So we don't want this spaceship at the house that can't do anything. Sustainable transport is a new one. So basically they give us an electric vehicle during the competition. I don't think it's the Tesla Roadster. So essentially they give us a driving task each day. They tell you to drive to a certain place and drive back. We've got to be able to charge the car and keep it charged at the end of the competition. And another one which I find really interesting, they want to make sure you keep your essentially fuel consumption low, your kilowatt hour to kilometre ratio. So you're probably going to have to find some nice small people to jump in the car, lightweight, but they don't use all their energy like me. Sustainability is a pretty self-explanatory one. Again, another judged competition, so they just look at how sustainable all your construction systems, the materials you use in the house, how well you manage water and waste, and then any vegetation you have around the house, like green walls, that sort of thing. Communications is more the business side of thing. Again, judged competition, so they look at all our social media, what the message of our house is, how we're conveying that to the public, how basically the business side of our project is as a whole. And then finally, the last contest is innovation, which is again another judged one, and they just want to see innovation across all aspects of the project, from your architecture to your engineering, your energy management strategies, your smart solutions, basically the whole lot. So yeah, that's what we're, designing for. That's kind of the design criteria we're building for. So this photo was taken probably about 18 months ago, the first trip to Dubai when we kind of just started the project. And what you're seeing here is pretty much where we're building the house. Might not tell by the looks on our faces, we're all smiles, but at this point it was about 46 degrees in that desert and blowing in gale. It was the most uncomfortable I think I've ever been in my whole life. My friend on the right there, Luca, who's our construction manager, actually had to take his sunglasses off his face because his metal frames were getting so hot that they were burning his skin. So it's a pretty inhospitable environment, but I guess we're looking forward to the challenge. So as I said, it's next to the Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum Solar Park, which is going to be the biggest solar park in the world. At the moment, there's only 200 megawatts here. There's going to be 5 gigawatts. So this is 1/25 of what they're planning on having there by 2030. So the construction site is essentially just off to the side here. So the concept, so there was a pretty extensive design phase we went through. I won't go into the details because it's just going to bore you, but this is what we came up with. I'll go through a few features. As you can see, lots of windows on what would be the northern facing side in the northern hemisphere, so the non-sun facing side, so we can let a lot of natural light in but not have any internal heat gains. This kind of patterned wall here is an interesting feature that was made by students at UOW. It's called the second skin wall, so it's made out of a lightweight foam concrete that sits off the house. So not only does it have this nice pattern in it, but the sun actually hits that wall as opposed to hitting the house. So when we were here in Wollongong and built the house, we did some experiments and noticed that that wall was getting to 35 degrees and then the inside wall was only at 23. So there's a real big difference and a real reduction in heat gains by just having that wall there. And then when you light it up at night, it looks really nice. Yeah. So again, the front side of the house, minimizing windows on the sun-facing side. We do have some windows around the courtyard that you can't see. But yeah, I'll basically just show you some more photos. So construction began in April of 2018. I'm just going to basically go through the whole construction process, just quickly flip through some photos just to give you guys a bit of an idea of the journey we've had over the last 6 months and how much work all the students have put into, I guess, creating this house. It's been a bit of an effort, but we got there in the end. So construction began in, as I said, in April. Basically our frame is made up of a light gauge steel construction, so it's all designed in the program and then sent to us like a big Lego set where we just put it all together. So a big group of students began putting it all together. And once that was finished, we started working on the floors, so building the floors up. You can see here this red membrane. It's basically all over the bottom side of the floors. That's an airtight membrane. So essentially our whole house is wrapped in this red membrane. So we really wanted to create a nice airtight insulated house that basically we're aiming to achieve to passive house standards. So here you can see some students putting in some rigid insulation on the bottom of the floor. Once we finish that, we flip the floors over and put some soft insulation and some structural plywood on. And then once we got all that done, the walls started going up. So this is all built at TAFE in the Illawarra. And then as I said, again, the red airtight membrane starts going around the walls. This is an interesting one. One of the big advantages of doing this steel frame construction is we can model every single system that goes in the house first. So basically we model this steel frame around the air conditioning system. And because in the software we knew it all would fit, we could build the air conditioning system. This is known as our HVAC cage off-site. So while the house construction was going on, we dived in and began installing all of our HVAC equipment. As you can imagine, Dubai is extremely hot, so we need quite a bit of HVAC plant. But this was all installed off-site and then brought over and just craned onto the building. So once the roof began going on, we began wrapping the building in a rigid continuous insulation layer and obviously putting in all the cables. So cabling was a bit of a difficult one. You can imagine pulling the house apart and putting it back together 2 or 3 times makes cabling a bit of a nightmare, but we managed to work out a solution using cable trays and conduit running down the walls. Basically everywhere we had a join, we purchased these quick connects that we can unplug and put back together when the house is built and rebuilt multiple times. So once that, started working on the electrical board and installation of the board. And then once we got the house to this point, so this was around June of this year, so we're just about ready to put cladding on, but we wanted to basically do a practice build of the house. So we wanted to be able to put the house back together as quick as we can to simulate what it's going to be like in Dubai. So just when the cladding was ready to go on, we started pulling it apart. So this is our first disassembly. So we're in a really tight space in TAFE, but we managed to successfully pull the thing apart. Basically the whole house was designed to fit in a shipping container, all the wall modules. Unfortunately this one has a really big door that goes to a back deck. So one of our really good workshop guys had to build this rig that actually leaves the wall on the side so we can slide it into a container. But we packed up 7 shipping containers and then took it to our innovation campus and we started to build it again. So the first day we started putting in our bathroom pods and then putting the floors down next to that. So we got all the bathroom pods and the floors down in one day. Next day we started putting walls in. We got all the walls together in one day. So this is a bit of a late night, but as you can see, all the walls are up and we're only 2 days in. Third day, the roof started going up. Now the roof is a bit more challenging than the floors because we've got a lot of the, obviously electrical connections and air conditioning connections and that sort of thing. But halfway through the 4th day, so 3.5 days, we're back to exactly where we were when we started at TAFE. So 3.5 day turnaround wasn't too bad. So from there, we just continued building, finishing off the installation, adding the solar. So we're using a pretty innovative solar system. It's not regular solar panels, they're solar tiles made by a company called Tactile Solar. So the cool thing about this is they actually completely replace our roof construction. So on the sun-facing side of the house, we don't have a roof, we have solar. So this is essentially how they go. So they just slot in together, and they also have water channels running through them as well. So I'll go into a bit more detail about that later. So some of our great plumbing students from TAFE were able to basically plumb up this whole roof in a day. which serves our domestic hot water as well as cooling the solar panels and cooling the building down as well. Yeah, as you can see, it looks pretty damn nice once it's all up there. So we're hoping that there's actually a specific award in the competition for building integrated photovoltaics. We're hoping that this system will be able to take it out for us. Just like the solar. And a juice box after a big hard day of work. So once that...
So the solar panels are cooled by what you cool them as well as take the heat out.
So basically we use the hot water system we have is just kind of oversized and big and has a heat exchanging coil in it. So the water that runs basically through this coil goes up to the tiles. So it runs through the coil and the coil gets cooled down the bottom just due to the stratification in the tank. So then that cold water gets pumped up. So when the system detects the temperature in the tiles is above 45 degrees, it starts pumping the water up there. That water gets heated as it goes through the tiles, comes back to the tank, and essentially preheats the incoming hot water to 45 to 50 degrees C. And then it's just boosted that extra 10 degrees by an electric element that's connected to the solar as well. So yeah, once that was done, we connected our inverters and energy storage units. So these are an all-in-one hybrid inverter and energy storage from Germany. So they're the first two of their kind in Australia. I'll go into a bit more detail about them soon. After lots and lots of commissioning of lights, air conditioning, solar, everything, we finally got the house built. So this is the interior of the house, the dining and living area, some of the kitchen, guest bedroom and study, some more of the dining, and the lounge room with some simulated sand dunes in the background. So this is just some of the back deck of the house. So here you can see these brackets on the walls. Basically they're there and they hold that second skin wall I was talking about. So it's painted like a, basically an off-white sandy kind of colour, but we've keeping that one under wraps because it's kind of a bit of a secret weapon we have for the competition. So after that, we got it all up and built, and then we had to tear it down again. So unfortunately, we had some pretty poor weather, I guess you could say, during the end of August when we were pulling this thing apart. So there was lots of tarps used, lots of things got wet, but we had to just push on because we were on a really tight schedule. We had to get this house on a boat. So as I said, after lots of tarps, we were able to tightly pack it. This time we had a lot more stuff due to all the solar and that kind of thing we needed to pack. So we had 8 shipping containers this time, 7 40-foot shipping containers and 1 20-foot. Yeah, we're all smiles and having some fun along the way. Yeah, finally we got it all packed up in around a week's time, and it's currently on a ship somewhere heading to Dubai. So now I'll dive into a bit more of the technologies. That was more of a journey, I guess. I thought it'd be a bit more interesting than just boring you with details. So yeah, we'll meet it there, myself and 40 other students, in around a month, and begin the process of building it all over again. So yeah, more on the technologies. So from the technological standpoint, the goals we had were to installation of the building integrated photovoltaic system that serves multiple purposes, as I was mentioning before. We want all the active systems in the house to work together to maximise the amount of renewables. That's kind of our energy strategy, maximising the amount of renewable energy used in the house. Development of a building management system that can adapt to the occupant needs as they age and aid them in their, I guess, health and well-being. And then seamlessly integrating kind of building automation and IoT. So that's one of the things the organisers specifically said in the criteria that they wanted to see. So for a building management side of things, we're using a protocol or a language, I guess you could say, called KNX. So it's just an open source language, like lots of big companies kind of create products that talk this language and able to control buildings with. It's actually a standard in Europe. It's not seen so much here. We have a stronghold by a protocol CBUS, so we wanted to do something different in Australia than is traditionally done. And the fact that it's open source means we can tweak it and play with it and make it work as we want to have it work, not necessarily how the manufacturers specifically design it for. So using KNX, we're monitoring and controlling energy, lights, air conditioning, solar, looking at the weather, operating windows, basically everything in the house will communicate with this language. We're bringing all this data and information online to an Internet of Things platform called Node-RED. So here we can basically get all these different systems talking to each other, and we can write little scripts that get these things communicating, where you traditionally might need, you might need a gateway for your air conditioning system to talk to your solar, and you might need another gateway for your solar to talk to your hot water unit or whatever that may be. This kind of negates the need for that. We can just get all this data online and get everything talking to each other. We can make, optimal decisions around the house and how we operate all the active systems within the house itself. So on to a bit more detail about the solar. As I said, they're called track-tile solar tiles. So we've designed it to be essentially a 5-in-1 system. So we have 10.4 kilowatts of solar installed on the roof, so that's 104 solar tiles. So our energy strategy with both our solar and our energy storage is we not only want to produce enough energy for us, but our, the community as a whole. How can we be a net positive house and show that we can both supply enough energy for us and our surrounding neighbours? So we're able to produce domestic hot water from it as well. As I mentioned, it completely replaces our roof construction. It provides solar panel cooling due to the water running underneath the tiles, which is a huge one for Dubai. And then it acts as an insulating element as well. So by cooling the panels down, we're essentially cooling the roof down, which in turn cooling the building down. So it's 5-in-1. And the great thing about it, it's really easy to install. Myself and 2 other guys were able to install the system on the practice rebuild in about half a day. So it's really, really quick, and it's capable of withstanding cyclonic wind and hail. Cyclonic wind in Dubai when we're in the desert is nearly what it was like. Inverters and energy storage, as I said, 2 hybrid inverters with energy storage units from a company called E3DC. So they're a German startup. So they're only a few years old, but they've really taken a hold of the German energy storage market. I think they've got the 3rd most batteries in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, behind the likes of Tesla and Sony. It's got a 7 kilowatt inverter in it, so we need 2 of them to basically invert our DC energy, and they've got 6.8 kilowatt hours of lithium-ion energy in it as well. And we're able to communicate with these units using our building and management system over IP. So one of the big problems in a lot of what our energy strategy relates to is that basically a lot of energy storage units are a bit dumb. They just charge and discharge whenever they have energy or whenever they see that energy is needed. But they don't look at the customers, or the consumers' energy habits, or what the weather's doing, or when they might need to use or conserve that energy or use that energy, or what the cost of energy is doing. So we developed an algorithm that's able to look at the customer load, like 24 hours ahead into the future. Then we look at what we think our solar PV is going to be outputting 24 hours ahead into the future, and then what the cost of energy is going to be 24 hours into the future. And using all our data, we can create an optimization algorithm that's able to basically determine the best next 24 hours of how we can basically utilize our battery, and when we can utilize our battery, and when we can utilize certain loads in the house to really maximize the amount of renewable energy we use. So this has been incorporated onto the battery system that we have developed. And we've basically found that from a cost standpoint and a renewable energy consumption standpoint, we can increase it by 20% compared to just your regular charging and discharging cycles. So again, we just use this control to communicate with the batteries via no bread, as I was mentioning before, just using a Raspberry Pi over the internet, so it's really cheap. EV charging, so we have what's called a Hager Woody Park. So this EV charger is actually out of France, but Hager have been kind enough to support us throughout the project, so they're able to bring that one over for us. It's a 7 kilowatt charger, so quite a bit of power there to charge your electric vehicle. But the cool thing about this is, again, we can communicate and control it. So linking it to the building management system, if the car's plugged in and we know we have an excess amount of solar, it can charge at the rate that is that excess amount of solar. So if we're producing 3 kilowatts excess than we need, we can dynamically change that charging power to 3 kilowatts to match what our solar is producing. So that makes sure all of your solar energy, if you need it, is being used in the home and not wasted anywhere else. So again, that's linked to our prediction algorithm and linked back to the building management system. So lighting is a really interesting one of my favourites, which is really fun installing and commissioning this lighting system. So we use what's called DALI lighting for all the downlights in the house. So DALI stands for Digital Addressable Lighting Interface. So again, it's basically just a language or a communication protocol where every downlight becomes smart and has an address. So you can individually program them to switch on or dim or put them in groups or whatever it may be. But the biggest advantage for us in the house is that you only have one lighting circuit that goes throughout the whole house connecting these lights. So in a traditional house like this, if you wanted to operate a certain group of lights. One cable would have to go to your dining room and then back to a relay, same with your kitchen, living room, etc., etc. So for our house alone, by using DALI, we're able to reduce our lighting cables by a factor of 10. So especially for the construction and reconstruction work we're doing in Dubai, being able to just connect one circuit for lighting in the house as opposed to an additional 10 is a real time saver for us. So that was a real advantage. LED lighting, some students at UOW in our team developed some smart lighting controllers that we can control over Wi-Fi. So they basically use to control LED strips that we have around the cornices, as well as some what's called Pixelux light panels. So we have these light panels. 2 of them are installed in our bathroom and they almost look like skylights when we turn them on. And then we have one on the splashback, which is, as you can see, changes from, there it's purple, but it changes from red, green and blue. And you can turn it on, it gives you some nice light while you're cooking. It's a nice little architectural feature as well. And one of the other things, I guess from the dementia side of things, we wanted to have an induction cooktop in the house, but we all know how hard it is to use those small touch screens that you have on cooktops these days. So we've searched far and wide for an induction cooktop that actually had knobs, which is a nice little feature, I guess. So smart loads, we've used a lot of smart Wi-Fi plugs throughout the house and basically pulled them apart and reprogrammed them to suit what we're doing in the house. So from a simple, I guess, one of the simple things we're doing with them is just connected them to like TVs and computer monitors and micros and that kind of things, just to turn off standby power when you're not at home. It's not much energy, but it's a little energy efficiency feature that's pretty low cost and cheap to do. Again, the hot water unit is connected to one of these smart plugs. So if we need that little bit of extra boost I was talking about earlier, we can make sure that we're boosting by solar energy, as opposed to the heating element just turning on willy-nilly whenever it may be. So again, that's a feature that pretty much anyone can do in their house if they needed to. One of my favourite things is the smart electronic taps that we've developed. So again, from the health standpoint, people living with arthritis and that kind of thing find it really difficult to use taps or whatever it may be. So we've been working with company Enware to develop these smart electronic taps. Again, they just use a Raspberry Pi, which controls what's called an electronic thermostatic mixing valve. So basically what this mixing valve does is it controls the mixing of hot and cold water electronically as opposed to mechanically. So this has a lot of benefits for us. One, the taps are free spinning, so there's no real, it's really easy to use, or we even have a feature where you can just press them to turn them on. So if you really can't even spin, you can just press them. The second thing, they've got visual feedback, so when you've got cold water, the taps turn blue. When you change it to warm, they begin becoming yellow, orange, and then when it's hot, it's red. 3, we can program automatic shut-off. So if you forget to turn the taps off, they'll just automatically turn off after X amount of seconds. 4, we can dynamically change the temperature set point at each fixture. So if you want to do a shower to be slightly cooler than your kitchen, you just go in and change that, and it's never going to rise above that level. I think that's it. 5, and monitor all the water usage as well. So we can feed that back to the occupants and let them know where or when they might be able to use a bit less water. So again, automated windows as well. So nothing really new here. It's basically linked to our air conditioning system, and the windows look at what the weather's doing outside at the moment and determine the best time to open and close based on what's going to save us the most energy. So if it's nice outside, let's turn the air conditioner off and open some windows. Pretty straightforward. So finally, voice control. Basically everything I've just previously mentioned in the house, we can talk to and tell it what to do. So using an Amazon Alexa, we can turn lights to turn on, tell windows to open. We can even tell the shower to turn on and start at 35 degrees. So we're trying to basically incorporate these technologies, particularly keeping in mind someone like a carer. How can we use these technologies? If you were caring for someone and you've got your hands full, how are you able to talk to the house and tell it what you need to do as opposed to having to put someone down or do something first? So these are kind of all the little technologies we're trying to incorporate to make a house for life. So thank you.